Welcome to the Cross Discussion. I'm your host, Cody. Thanks for joining us again today for episode 9. We're almost at the end, which is exciting. We've got one more episode after this one. However you're joining today, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, YouTube, thanks for tuning in. Just see if you can share it with anyone. If you had anything that kind of pops out to you in this episode, share it with anyone who you think would benefit from that. This week, we're going to be discussing wisdom. On our journey through purpose and identity. Wisdom will be our topic of discussion, which would be cool. I'm joined by Sophie and Jaden and our guest Peter as well. So welcome, Peter.
Thank you.
Good to have you on. We all admire you as a wise person. That's kind of someone that we look up to for your wisdom and that sort of thing. So,
thank you.
Really cool to have you here today.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah. Why'd you start laughing? Was that a joke, Jaden? Come on.
No, it's not a joke. I just know Mr. Fernance very well. We've had many discussions.
Yeah.
I'm excited for today.
Are you comfortable calling him Peter, or are you just going to keep calling him Mr. Fernance?
Actually, we will have to go with Peter, won't we?
Yeah.
So Mr. Peter has been, I've known him through schooling for a while, a great career advisor, and I'm a teacher at my school, so it's been pretty cool. But,
Really cool. Hey, Peter, we always like to start with like a bit of an icebreaker activity for you as the guest and that sort of thing. So it's just going to be a couple of would you rather questions. I'm just going to rapid fire at you.
Yeah.
You'll just respond as quick as you can. Just get a bit of insight on your preferences between the two things that I state, which would be pretty cool. Cool thing that we do. Anyway, we'll do it really quickly. Here we go. First one, would you rather have a mullet or a ponytail?
Mullet.
I thought it would be neither. The school.
Used to have a mullet.
Yeah, right. Crazy.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
Again, insight.
Yeah.
There we go.
I wrote that one.
That was extremely wise. Thank you.
Yeah.
Would you rather be without shampoo for the rest of your life or go without toothpaste for the rest of your life?
Shampoo.
Yeah.
It's a bit dirty, but all right. I mean, both of which you can't really get away with. Would you rather have to always hop around on one foot or always squat?
Always what? Sorry? Always
squat.
squat. Always squat.
Always squat. Mega thighs doing that one. Would you rather speak in rhyme for the rest of your life or speak in riddles for the rest of your life?
Speaking riddles.
Yeah, he already does.
It's true. There you go.
Speaking.
Kind of a sub-trade.
That's it.
Yeah.
Would you rather lose the ability to cry or cry every day for 20 minutes randomly?
Cry every day randomly for 20 minutes.
Okay, there you go.
So,
Interesting. Would you rather go to work in a helicopter or on a horse?
Horse.
Horse. Shrink down to the size of an ant or grow to the size of a skyscraper?
A skyscraper.
Okay.
they're so random, eh?
This is our.
Yeah.
This next one is our classic one. This is the one we always ask.
Yeah.
Would you rather fight 100 duck-sized horses or one horse-sized duck?
One horse-sized duck.
Why would that be? Curiosity.
Yeah.
It's only one off.
Yeah. Okay. Sure. You can.
Yeah, but it's a big-sized duck.
Yeah.
Ducks are scary.
But the 100 ducks are very hard to estimate what their strength is collectively.
It's actually 100 horses.
100
100 horses, sorry. 100
Yeah.
horses collectively.
True, but they're duck size, so they'd be like.
Potentially. Not if they're on top of each other.
Oh, they could work together. That's new. We haven't seen that.
Wisdom kicking in already.
Yeah, that's it.
No, thank you. Something to think about.
Yeah.
And was that a wise response?
Yeah.
I think so.
You're the guest.
Or was it just thought out?
You guys tell us online if that was wise or not.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I know, it was. All right, I think we'll move on to a bunch of questions for you.
Yeah, sure.
So our first question is obviously just to kick us off with the wisdom topic. What is your definition of wisdom?
Yeah. So the definition of wisdom is to fear God.
So good, pretty straight. We don't have to do rapid fire for these ones.
No,
no,
but it is. It is to fear God.
Yeah.
And that's an interesting perspective because if you don't fear God, are you wise? So Proverbs 9:10 says the beginning of wisdom is to fear God.
There you go. I mean, it is a succinct answer, I guess. So yeah.
Yeah,
sure.
so it's interesting that I've brought some definitions along.
Yeah.
So can I actually read some of the
Yeah,
definitions?
100%, yeah.
Because the Proverbs 9:10 says that the beginning of wisdom is to fear God, and then knowledge comes from your understanding of the Holy One.
Yeah.
Right? So if you actually look at, sorry, I'm just looking for my glasses, yeah? But if you're actually looking at, it was interesting because I printed off a whole lot of definition of wisdom, which is fascinating because I really want to sort of ask what you guys actually think of it, to actually flip it, because Here is one. The quality of having experience, knowledge and good judgment. The quality is the quality of being wise. Interesting. The fact of being based on sensible or wise thinking. This is a really interesting one. The body of knowledge and experience that develops within a specified society or period. So that's fascinating from that perspective, because does that mean that wisdom changes over time based on what society or period thinks at that particular time?
Well, I was going to say just then, with all of those ones that you just listed, it all seemed to, it was like if you have good judgment, but how are they determining what good judgment is? And it can then change, as you were saying, yeah.
Exactly. How about this one here? The quality of or state of being wise is knowledge of what is true or right, coupled with just judgment as to action. So what's true and right in society right now? Because we often talk about truth being what you think truth is.
Yeah.
So therefore, if that's the case, then wisdom comes from truth according to what you think is truth.
Yeah.
Just kind of dangerous, I guess, because we're not always going to know the truth.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I was driving down the road just now, down the highway, and just say hypothetically that a car started swerving in front of me. Is it a wise decision or a sensible decision to pull back and give myself distance? Is that wisdom? Or is that just being sensible? Are we getting to the stage where sometimes we put sensible decision making and see that as being wise?
Yeah.
So if I put my hand on a stove, is it a sensible decision when I don't decide to touch the stove? Or is it a wise decision?
I'd say that'd be a wise decision in the first place in hindsight, because you know what the consequences are.
But it's also
That'd be-
sensible.
It is also sensible, yeah. It can go hand in hand, that sort of.
Because the knowledge is, I'll get burnt.
Yeah.
I would have said, I would have thought it was wisdom, because I would say the knowledge is knowing, oh, I'm going to have my hands burnt. And wouldn't wisdom be knowing the right thing to do based off that? Well, not.
But I feel like it's inherent. Like, you are going to get burned. Everyone knows that. I feel like wisdom is kind of something that sets you apart from some other people, I would say. Like, I don't know. I feel like everyone knows that you're going to burn your hand, whereas I feel
And I
like
wouldn't call
wisdom
that person
takes...
wise. For, you wouldn't just say because someone didn't put their hand on a barbecue.
I wouldn't...
Wise
I'm
person.
saying I wouldn't
Yeah.
say that they're wise. I would say they're just sensible, me personally.
See, and so knowledge and understanding and wisdom, because I see that's one of the questions,
Yeah.
is what's the difference? Are they actually linked or are they distinctly different? And see, wisdom has got to have some form of moral basis to it.
Yeah.
And the moral basis needs to be something which is absolute, doesn't change. See, many years ago, we would see that a male's a male and a female was a female.
Yeah.
But now society has put all that upside down, one would perceive as being that. So if wisdom is linked to a societal thought or given time, where is wisdom intrinsically linked with what our beliefs were 100 years ago?
I guess that's why it was a dangerous definition. Because if we're just linking wisdom with what we see as the truth, it's going to change over time, and that might not necessarily change in the right way. But I guess what you were getting at before is the fear of the Lord, like God's constant.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because you can see there that not once in any of those, and there's like 30 definitions. If I kept reading, the ability to discern or judge what is true, right, or lasting,
They
Yeah.
don't say what that is. There's no standard.
there's no standard.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so if we go back to, none of them quote the Bible there, but if you go back to the Proverbs where the fear of the Lord is the beginning of wisdom, and knowledge and understanding comes from understanding the Holy One, then that biblical basis has not changed.
Yeah.
And that basis will not change in the future, because the wisdom is defined as not what I actually think, but from the basis of what God thinks.
Cool.
Thoughts?
I love that. I really like that. Yeah. I think that's very true. Because as Jaden said, God is constant. So you've always got something to, I guess, hold yourself accountable to in that sense. But yeah, I just have like a follow-up question. With, I guess you were saying you've got to fear the Lord to find wisdom. How do you do that? Like how do you then go about seeking wisdom from the Lord? Because I, for one, do fear the Lord, but it still is tricky sometimes to, I guess, yeah, is it in the Word? Is it in the Bible? Is it through experience? Is it through prayer? Where do you find wisdom comes from?
Yeah. And that's a really, really good question, because we're all governed at some stage by fears and anxieties.
Yeah.
You know, one of the things when I was your age, and I'm not sure if it's as prevalent amongst your age now as what it was, but in my experience, it was, what if I'm not doing God's will?
Yeah.
And if you look at that, can become quite fearful. And the father of fear is Satan.
Yeah.
So he'll always look at opportunities to be able to use fear to move your reliance away from God.
Yeah.
But the one thing that one of the Bible verses for me that's been impacting my life is the Songs of Solomon. And Solomon talks about wisdom, and we know that Solomon prayed for wisdom and got wisdom. And we know that Solomon was deemed as the wisest man ever to live. He didn't always make right decisions, and his life, certainly toward the end, became more folly rather than wise. But he certainly made a lot of significant wise decisions because he was given that. But if you look at right at the end of Songs of Solomon, and he says, you know what, I've looked for wisdom, I've looked for understanding, I've looked for everything in life, but I've come to this summation, is fear God and enjoy life. And that's something for me that I've actually come to, where the various points of my life, which I've been through significant things in my life, where I've actually come to the understanding of, you know what, God's got this. All I've got to do is be in reverence to him and his will in my life, that I don't get caught up with what he perceived of where he wants me to go. We've had this conversation, or what he wants me to be. The fact is, I just need to, in fear and reverence, because not it's a healthy fear. It's not a fear led by Satan. It's a healthy fear, and fear and reverence to him, to know that if I abide in him, he will make my path straight.
Yeah.
Would you say it's almost like a comforting fear then, I guess?
Absolutely, because I look back, and sometimes, you know, I've been like everyone has, where something's gone down, and where I have ended up has not been where I actually have thought that God wanted me to be. But then I've always looked back and gone, wait a minute, I can see the God's hand in that. He took me out of that environment, put me on a different path. Yes, I didn't necessarily know where I was going at the time, but now that was the best thing that actually ever occurred for me, because of the other things that have actually happened from that.
Yeah.
And for most people that have just left year 12, this is one of the most significant times where you are looking at, what is God's will for me in my life? Well, the fact is that you don't need to worry about that. When you say, I love God unconditionally, my wisdom comes from the fear and reverence of knowing him. And by abiding in him, he will make your path straight. And it's not about what you see in a minute's time. It's when you reflect back in 5 years' time. At this particular point now. And so we live in a world at the moment where it's governed by the decisions that are being made as being perceived as wise decisions are just societal decisions. And things of what truth is actually seen in society at that particular point in time. So if we look, and it's not even an earthly wisdom and a spiritual wisdom, because a lot of people go, oh, there's earthly wisdom and there's spiritual wisdom. No, the fear of God is the beginning of wisdom. There is no such thing as earthly wisdom. Unless we have a moral basis coming from fear and reverence of God. which is absolute, which hasn't changed, will never change, and will be the same yesterday, today, and forever.
Yeah.
Yeah. So with that, the fear of the Lord. What was some practical? Because I've been struggling with this myself. It's like,
Yeah.
so I was reading my Bibles, doing devotions, and I was reading about the fear of the Lord, right? And I was sitting there and I was thinking, like, how do I just get to fear God more? Because I actually remember in my application I wrote, oh, I feel like to get where I'm wanting to go here, I need to fear God more. Because I felt like sometimes I'd feel like praying for someone. I felt like I had a prompting to, and I wouldn't go through with it. And I'm thinking, geez, like I'm a human, God's God. How am I doing that? And I was like, I guess I need to fear Him.
So again, the fear is again, Satan will always steal that word, right? Satan will always steal words. So when we talk about fear if we go out and start talking about fear in the general public, they'll go,
Yeah.
you know,
Yeah.
because Satan wants to steal the very goodness of God. The fear in this sense is a really healthy fear.
Yes.
So if you actually change fear to dependence, and you actually say, when I come to depend on God more today than what I did yesterday, then I'm gaining wisdom and I'm becoming more reverent because of being so dependent upon Him. And in a year's time, if you say, I'm more dependent on God now than what I was a year ago, you are gaining wisdom.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Cool. Thanks so much.
Okay? So that is always the perspective, because that, again, Satan will want to steal that.
Yeah.
Because then he'll say, you know what, you can't survive on your own. You're so dependent upon God. And you go, yes, hallelujah. I'm more dependent on God now than what I was 12 months ago.
Yeah.
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 That's what you want.
That's so good. Yeah.
And so if you made a comment before saying, it's so good to have someone who is wiser than me, and I'm saying, how do you know I'm actually wiser than you in everything? Because, again, wisdom often gets linked with age. Now, experiences, I've had more experiences than what you've had. That doesn't mean I'm wiser than you in every single one of those experiences.
Yeah.
There are people who are half my age who have made wiser decisions because they've actually been exposed and experienced more than what I actually have.
Yeah.
And so the beauty of it is that out of the mouth of babes. You know, I remember my grandmother when my grandmother was, apart from my wife and my children, the person I have loved the most, even more my own parents. My parents would be devastated to hear that, but my grandmother was the most instrumental person in my life. I remember at 81, she turned to me when I was about 27. I said something. She goes, you know what, Peter? I still learn something new every single day, and particularly from you, I learn everything, like something new every single day. And I realised at that particular point, that here's a woman who I greatly admired and was incredibly wise, but also had an understanding that wisdom can come from any age, from anything, because God is a God of insight. And He will choose to give insight to whoever He wants at whatever age He wants. Jesus was 12 when He actually went into the temple and spoke. And it says that they were astonished by His wisdom.
So wisdom is not necessarily
Linked with age.
it's not necessarily knowledge with experience, because experience comes with age or just with events that happen in your life. It's more so obviously thinking about age. Experience would be over time.
Yeah.
Wisdom is more so something that can be applied for anyone of any age.
Absolutely.
So long as it's like, obviously, if you ask for it, that's God's going to give it to you.
Absolutely.
How important does the asking for it come into play with wisdom? Is it purely just your relationship with God and being dependent on Him, or is it really important to actually ask that of God?
Ask Solomon. Because that's a classic situation where dependence on God naturally will drive you to seek His will and wisdom for areas of your life.
I guess if you're wholly depending on Him, that's where the asking comes into play.
Yeah. I mean, we went to Sherwood, right?
Yeah. Loved it. Yeah.
Those guys down there have never had have never been given any money or assistance from the government.
Just a little bit. Yeah. Sherwood's like a drug and alcohol rehabilitation in New South Wales, and there's a heap of guys there who are just getting over some stuff. So.
Yeah, and so they've actually been operating, for 40-something years,
crazy, yeah.
and have never once been given any money from the government. Now, that is seeking God
Yeah.
with every single, and and they talk stories after stories where they needed 20 grand and money just mysteriously happens, and those sorts of things. That is dependence upon God from a financial, but also from every aspect. And when you come to live in that sort of dependence on God, you will always be content with where you are at, because you know that you are planted and at the point where God wants you to be.
Yeah.
And you saw that show today.
Yeah.
Like if so, like we talked about on a previous episode, I did get into the Navy, which is pretty cool. But
Yeah.
one thing I was thinking of doing, if not, was asking them if I could go down there again. And my reason being is when I was there, I just remember talking to the owners of that place, and they were just the wisest people I know. And I remember coming back, and I was like, geez, they just live by Jesus every day. And that's not even just financially. Like they would wake up, they'd do their devotions, they'd pray together. Everything was centered around Christ. And no surprise, like the fruit of that, they were like the wisest people I know. And I just wanted to learn from them and be like them. But I guess it's not be like them, it's be more like Christ, depend on Christ. I think that's what they were doing really well there. So yeah, really cool.
How important is it for you to surround yourself with, like, I guess, mentors and other wise people? Do you think?
Yeah, absolutely. But you got to be wise in how you go about that too. Because, in the church over time, people will go, look, I'm part of this church community, and in this I network with this person and that. But I don't think that's what it's about.
Yeah.
It's about, again, depending on God, can you please put particular people in my life who will help me through that?
Yeah.
Because otherwise you'll come into this viewpoint of going, you know what, they need to actually be more successful than me, they need to be older than me, they actually need to have more, they need to have their marriage together. All these sorts of things that you will have, which are all just man-made sort of type understandings, societal, right? Societal.
Yeah.
And other things. Whereas you might have a 15-year-old who might speak into your life.
Yeah.
They're younger than me. Wait a minute, how does that work? Because, remember, God can provide insight into whoever he chooses to give insight to.
So you're not necessarily a big believer then in like having like one kind of older mentor that you kind of go to? Well, like you said, age doesn't correlate with wisdom.
Age,
so
experience, what's on their badge, titles, not at all.
100%. So just pray that God will drop that into your life.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Be open to... I mean, you guys have spoken to me. I don't think you realise. But each of you have... Cody, not so much you, but
thanks.
sorry. But you've been in my office and you've actually spoken into my life.
Yeah, okay.
So, you've come into... And I think, too, is that you need to have the I will receive more than what I can give. Like, I haven't come with the thought of going, I'm just going to give wisdom.
Yeah.
I have come with the mindset of going, I will leave with what more than what you will give me, than what I'll ever be able to give you.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's a good mindset.
Because that's what the iron sharpens iron.
Yeah.
Great verse, yeah. Because obviously, it's like a rare kind of thing where iron sharpens iron itself, and we can sharpen each other as people there. Cool verse.
But if we're looking through a lens which becomes then a worldly lens of what we deem as wisdom, then we will limit our dependence upon God, and therefore we will limit what we can actually gain in the right sense of the word.
Jeez, I've learned so much through this episode.
Yeah, no.
This has been great.
I
I'm
agree.
loving it. Yeah.
That link you made between the fear of God or more dependence on God, and that's what births wisdom, is just amazing. Yeah, it's really changed my perspective. Because you think it's about knowledge, you think it's about reading the word more, which I think definitely all helps with that, but that as the beginning of wisdom is so powerful.
The beginning of wisdom in that sense is to be able to sit and say, you know what, God, I don't know what's going to happen in 5 seconds' time, but the one thing I do know is that you will be with me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's actually pretty cool because so recently I remember I listened to this analogy and it was talking about an artist doesn't become original by just simply thinking about trying to be original, and you don't make a good impression by trying to think about making a good impression. That happens when, the artist is just thinking about doing the art, and naturally the originality comes along. And I think for me, I've really been striving to become like a better man of God or more wise and to grow up and that kind of thing. And it was really cool. I was watching this video and that quote was by C.S. Lewis that I just brought up, the originality thing. And I guess it's the same for wisdom. If I'm just sitting there thinking, oh, how can I be more wise? How can I do this? It's not necessarily going to come along. But if I just seek Jesus' face and God's face and look to him, then just like the artist got original without knowing it, that wisdom and stuff will come along and I won't even realize it's there. And I think it's really cool that I was looking at that literally just like yesterday and then you brought it up today and I think God's trying to speak to me there. So yeah, I guess just keep God.
Yeah, because I don't think you intentionally need to go out and go, I need to be wise. You need to go out again in faithfulness to God and wisdom will come from that.
Yeah.
Seek first the kingdom and all these things will be added on.
Absolutely.
So cool.
I love it.
So good.
Thanks so much, Peter.
Yeah.
Peter.
There you go.
Can I do it again?
Absolutely.
Oh, beautiful. Thank you very much. Not all teachers are the same in that regard. So
again, because why? Because I don't see student teacher. I see two people who are on a journey.
Yeah.
They can speak into each other's lives regardless of age.
yeah. So cool. Really important to think about as a young ad, I guess, too. Yeah. We can still make a difference and an impact.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that's the thing too, is that another point of wisdom there would be never underestimate the difference that you can make in other people's lives.
Yeah. Yeah.
But don't intentionally go out looking to make difference in people's lives.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Just seek God.
Seek God and it will occur.
Makes everything sound so much easier now.
Yeah.
To worry about all the logistics of wisdom and everything. It's just, it's really simple.
Even faith, it's just probably not really as complicated as we make it.
No.
Sometimes in the church and stuff, it's just seek God, and love others, and all the rest will just come along, I guess.
Yeah.
And I encourage you to read through Solomon again because, he talks about, if I do this and I do that, but then, that doesn't, and what's the sense of that? And, any questions, all the time that, it's meaningless. Everything's meaningless, because he came to that realization himself that he was given all wealth and he was given all understanding and he was given knowledge and all that sort of type stuff. But he came to the understanding that when I fear God, I am closest to him. And in that, I just need to enjoy that which is around me.
Yeah.
And that's how he finishes.
Crazy. And yeah, fear is not that kind of fear that we think of today. It's
No, because Satan wants to Satan takes the very thing that God holds dearly
Yeah.
and chooses to turn things upside down. Where fear has become the fear and reverence of God, has become fear in the sense of what the world perceives as fear.
Yeah.
And he's even stolen language
crazy.
because it confuses people. We go out there now, as I was saying before, we go out and talk about the fear of the Lord. People go, I don't want to be fearful of anyone. No, that's not what it's about. Because of that, how he steals.
Yeah.
That.
So cool.
Yeah. Hey, Peter, you've given us heaps to think about. We've actually learnt heaps just from you alone in this episode alone. Just like it's information overload right now, but it's everything you've said, I'm going to actively try and apply to my life. I'm sure it's the same for you too as well. Just really quickly as well, is there anything in particular that you wish, any piece of advice or wisdom that you wish that you knew when you were a young adult? Obviously not saying that you aren't a young adult anymore, right?
No.
But anything in particular that you kind of wish you knew as a young adult?
Look, to be honest, I've faced life and death. That's part of the reason why I can sit here now and speak the way I can. I know what it's like to be on the cusp of death. And
Long story, I'm assuming.
yeah, long story.
Yeah.
Long story. I've realised that there's nothing to fear, because God is heights, depths, powers, principalities. Neither heights nor depths or powers or principalities. Nothing can separate you from the love of God. I learnt that very much so in my mid-30s. And in saying that, that's probably my advice to you as well, is to realise that you cannot be separated from God's love.
Yeah.
The only place that you are separated from God's love is hell. because God does not exist.
Yeah.
And so we do not know what that's like because we have not experienced that, nor do we want to experience that. So the thing I've learnt over time is that nothing can separate you from God's love.
Yeah.
The moment that we allow things in our life, we can choose to turn away from God, but nothing will separate us from God.
Amen.
Okay? So that's probably the only thing of wisdom that I can pass on.
I'll take it in.
Again,
So good.
yeah.
Just keeping that in mind through obviously trials that you go through in life, knowing that God loves you, He's got unconditional love.
Unconditional love. And will never leave you and depart.
Yeah.
Do you think that the fear of the Lord and the love of the Lord are hand in hand? Like, I just got the image of like a father. You do fear your father in some sense, but it's
Yeah,
because
so
of his
true.
love.
It's healthy
that-
fear.
Yeah.
Mm.
Yeah.
And I think fatherhood has been one of the things for me that I've realised I love my children unconditionally, and even though sometimes fail's not the right word, but you get what I'm saying, right? My love, I never lose love for them. If that's the case for me as a human,
Yeah.
what must it be for God for me?
I mean, He sent His Son, right?
It's exactly
Take all the sin of the world, and all we got to do is believe in Him and
Yep.
follow.
Yeah.
It's a lot of love there.
Yep.
Yep. For sure. Obviously hard for us to kind of put into our own experiences because none of us are parents.
Even into
but-
the words. Yeah.
Apart from Peter.
yeah. Like even yourself, can you imagine giving your own son for the sake of the world?
It's exactly right.
It's
Yeah, crazy.
pretty like powerful.
Absolutely.
It is.
That's the gospel, I guess.
Mm.
What we got to do is, I think it says, believe, confess with our mouth, and follow God, and we can spend eternity with Him, with that Father. Because not everyone has a Father, obviously, as well on this earth.
That's exactly right.
But whether, especially for the people watching, maybe like their idea of that's been misconstrued a bit. But the biblical fatherhood of a father loving their son. If you need somewhere to go, I guess that's Christ. Look at that, God and the Son.
Yeah.
So cool.
So good.
Been
Well,
a pleasure.
Yeah. Thanks for joining us today. It's been
Absolutely
awesome.
loved chatting with you.
It has been absolutely incredible. Heaps, like I said before, heaps of stuff that even personally I've learned just from this interaction here.
Yeah, so much.
Yeah. But unfortunately, yes, that is all we've got time for today. We have run out of questions unless you guys can think of anything quickly.
Happy to chat again if you have any.
I think
For
I
sure.
could just listen to more tips forever. But I mean,
We'll see if we can bring him back for season 2. Then.
yeah, there we go.
No.
And the director's like, okay, Cody.
Yeah. So Shane,
I'm sure Shane would love it.
Shane, there is going to be a season 2. I'm making that decision now. All right. Well, yeah, again, thanks for joining us today.
So much.
Thanks for tuning in online. Everyone online, however you're joining, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, YouTube. We're trying to create a community with this podcast. So just however you want to engage, leaving a comment, even just feedback and that sort of thing for us. We'll respond to you online. If you obviously follow our Instagram on @TheCrossDiscussion, leave a comment on one of our posts. We'll take it onto account. If you want to leave a would you rather, like I say every week, you're welcome to leave one there and we can kind of take it into account for future episodes. By future episodes, meaning season 2, because that is confirmed that we are doing that. True. There you go. With that, though, thanks for tuning in. Let the discussion begin.